I was made for loving you, baby.
You were made for loving me.
For those of you watching along at home, this is the Camera Life podcast. And that intro music was proudly brought to you by our two guests, which we'll get to in just a moment. But this is episode 38 of the Camera Life podcast, proudly brought to you by Lucky Straps out of Bendigo, Victoria. And it's the 14th of November. And good morning to anyone watching and listening along, either live with us today or down the track via YouTube or your favourite audio podcast platform. For those of you watching along, you'll notice that there's a really distinct lack of members from the Lucky Straps team. I mean, obviously I'm here, but I'm more of a Lucky Straps groupie than a fully fledged member. But we are joined by Camera Life alumni, a good friend of mine and photography mentor, Ian Tan. Ian, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Always good to have you back on, mate. You always have a lot to offer. Justin and Jim are both, well, Justin's still in Vietnam. For anyone watched last week or listened last week, Justin has disappeared to Vietnam for a couple of weeks. No plans. He just arrived in country and they're just going to wing it, him and Yelena. Jim will be joining us a little bit later in the morning with any luck, as should Justin. So for those of you that watched last week or the week before, Justin's undertaking some photography challenges at the moment, and he's working on photo essays and storytelling through photography. So we've got some of his images from his first week in Vietnam ready to critique, which I'll certainly welcome Denis and Ian's views on that. Speaking of Denis, we are joined by Denis Smith.
Yeah,
he's a world-renowned photographer, and I've also seen some of his stunning videography work play out, which is quite magical, and we'll get to that in the course of today's podcast. But Denis, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thank you. It's beautiful to be here.
That's great to have you on. Big highlight of the week for me is having this podcast and talking shop with like-minded folk. We're going to stick around and we're going to get into Denis's story. We're going to learn about his inspirations. We're going to learn about his work. We're going to look at some of his work and kind of unpack what is truly a masterful photography is not, I don't think it's the right term. It's art. It's definitely art. And it's what we all do, which is, we chase light, we hunt light, we look for the light in the scene, and we master that light and time. But Denis takes it to the very, very, very next level with his light painting. So we'll cover that. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much. I was just, as you were describing that, firstly, thank you for your kind words. It's always a pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to discuss what I do and the nature of what I do. So often it's delivered with words and via YouTube and stuff, but open form, long form conversation, I think is really beautiful. And I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
No, it's our pleasure. We're very excited to get you on board. Well, I mean, obviously after meeting you at BFOP throughout the weekend, and for those of you that don't know what BFOP is, it's the Bright Festival of Photography. We've got a couple of episodes on the channel about how Justin and I attended BFOP and just the madness that ensued. And more often than not, I think Denis was a part of that madness. So we might cover a little bit of BFOP while we're talking about it, because I do want to learn more about your involvement in BFOP and your history of BFOP. But yeah, BFOP, guys, is the Bright Festival of Photography. It's held every year in the most beautiful regional Victorian town of Bright here in Australia. It was quite a magical, fun, surreal weekend.
It's crazy. BFOP is what it be, but Bright is, I've done, I think I keep trying to work it out. I think I've done every Bright bar one. So maybe 6 or 7 of them right from the beginning, when it was, 100 people in a tiny little marquee in Bright. And now it's just the most epic
it's huge
thing. 550 attendees, 40 presenters, 20 volunteers.
Yeah, and all the brands and support staff. And,
it's really, but it, and not wanting to jump ahead, but for me, I've done more air miles than I ever have than any other year this year. Yet the absolute highlight for me always is that date when I get to arrive in Bright and connect with my tribe. I live in a small country town where there's hardly any people, so it's it's astonishing every year. And I have more on that.
Yeah, no, good. We'll get to that. And Ian, you were not that anyone saw you. I don't actually believe you were there. You said you were. Although I have seen some photos of you conducting yourself professionally, as always, in what you love doing, which is cosplay photography. And you were running a workshop. Let's touch on BFOP while we're here. Tell us a little bit about your involvement.
Great opportunity. My first time, not my first BFOP. I've been to probably maybe 3 BFOP.
I mean, as an instructor,
as a formal attendant.
Right,
but as an instructor, this was my first year, and it was great. Just Fujifilm wanted to get a cosplay workshop happening, so they kindly asked me to come over and do that. The difficult thing for me with this workshop probably was securing the cosplayers, because I don't know if a lot of people know, but the BFOP dates actually clash with the largest cosplay event of the year, which is PAX. PAX is a massive video game convention that happens in Melbourne on the same weekend as BFOP. So for most cosplayers, it's their major event for them to do their cosplay and catch up with friends and that sort of stuff. So thankfully I managed to secure, I had a couple of friends who weren't planning to attend PAX, or who were happy to attend BFOP in place of PAX. So and it was great. I really wanted to share the world of cosplay photography with different photographers, because I think there's a growing awareness about what cosplay is, but still not many people understand what it is. They just think it's people dressing up for fun, and largely it probably is, but that there are there's a core group of cosplayers who do take it very seriously. They put in tons of efforts into their cosplay outfits. They sew, they fabricate foam, they 3D print materials, they'll paint, they'll cut, they'll do everything to make their costumes looking as amazing as they do. And they also role play the part, which is a kind of different from traditional. I don't know if you're shooting a fashion model, for example, where they just do their poses. Cosplayers have their poses, but more often they're trying to tell the story of their character through the costume as well. So so it was great doing that at BFOP, where I was trying to encourage all the participants to really use their photos to tell that story. And often I'll just set them a very easy assignment, and I'll say, look, I want you to tell me a story in 3 frames. Take 3 shots, and those 3 shots have to tell a story. And it was really cool to see everyone embracing that challenge and telling the story in their own way. So it was a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll get the chance to do it again next year.
Yeah, well, we hope to see you there next year. Lucky Straps will be back next year. We had a blast, and we'll definitely be back. But we've already covered that a lot in our past episodes, but I do want to dive into, Denis, your involvement in BFOP, because you have a wonderful magnetic energy and personality that made you feel like you were as entrenched in BFOP as the organisers were, which I found quite inspiring to see in you. You said you've been to, you think maybe this was about your 6th BFOP?
I would need to look back. I definitely did 1 or 2 prior to COVID, and then there were 2 that we did online, which were hilarious, by the way. Where we were trying to do this festival online and smashed it out of the ballpark, I think.
Yeah. And
then up in Bright, as it's sort of grown, I drive across from Adelaide, so each year I try and get there. So this year I did it in 11 and a half hours, which means I stopped to use a bathroom and fill the tank up again, but I do it direct. And this year I have another guy who comes to Bright, Joel, who has leaned into this idea of just becoming a film photographer, and he he thinks I'm a weirdo because I don't, I've never shot with film because I'm very new. We'll talk about this. I came to photography very late in my life. So we planned this 3-day epic trip into the hills above Bright so that I could put some film in his X-Pan and do some light painting with film. Unfortunately, some actual work that pays the mortgage came up. So I ended up doing an overnight drive through the night and got to Bright, I think at like 4:30 a.m. to be there on setup day to help set up. But look, Bright, the BFOP thing, it's really, I think this is the most beautiful way to describe where it's at rather than what it has been. And that is this thing. BFOP has this feeling about it. And it's this feeling of madness, of disorganization. Everyone, including the instructors, are pre-warned that it is going to be top to tail cock-ups, and you just need to deal with it. And it would appear that as it's growing, that's kind of also gone into people trying to get there and get organized. But what has happened is I stood in front of, I was given the last slot for my presentation about my India trip this year. So I stood in the room delivering my presentation about India, looking out across a room of 300, 400 people.
Yeah, I watched that one.
All I could think to myself is how is it possible? And the wonderful thing that Matt and Nick have done is, as this thing has exploded in size, it still feels like BFOP. It feels like the first one. It feels crazy and disorganized and fun.
Yeah.
More importantly, I think than anything is every single presenter that comes to that event and presents does it for love. It's certainly not for money. Yeah. We turn up and we deliver presentations and workshops and walking around and meeting people because we love doing it. Yeah. And the nice thing about that is it takes the pressure off us because, we're just being us. But something changed this year. I think this is worth mentioning. It felt different this year. There was this, and I don't know if it's because of the economy or because what things are like in our industry at the moment, but there was this real sense of vulnerability amongst us, the presenters. There was this sort of the egos had all sort of been dialed back a bit, and there was this real sense of vulnerability amongst us, but also the people coming. Yeah. And it allowed us to do what I think a lot of us up there do really well, and that is just to create a space, hold space for people to just express. And so for me, with my light painting or a lot of the workshops, it's where people, like cosplay, think about cosplay. People are turning up. They probably never photographed cosplay. There's 20 other attendees standing there. Everyone's nervous about sort of, am I a good photographer? Am I a bad photographer? Am I allowed to say I don't know what I'm doing or not? And BFOP is this place where it is completely safe. It is safe to acknowledge you don't know anything. It's safe to burst into tears because something has triggered you. You know that the workshop, the presenters or us that are taking them are going to hold space for you to be all of those things. Yeah. And it felt like that was lifted a little bit this year because I saw some things that were so beautiful.
Yeah, I sat in on one of Jesse's workshops, the intimate couples portrait workshop. Yeah. Up at Redcliffe.
Yep, Red Earth.
Red Earth Lodge. Thank you. That was on. I think that was day one. Yeah. No, it was day two. It was first thing in the morning, and we're standing in the woods, and the sun was coming in at a beautiful angle. And Jesse is such a vulnerable person, and he does create that safe space. He does. He's just got this natural awareness of where everyone's kind of at, and there were, I think, about 3 or 4 of us ended up breaking down in tears because he was explaining the need for connection with your subjects and explained a bit about his own need for connection and, made himself very vulnerable and raw. And one of the participants whose mother had recently passed away just broke down, and then he broke down, and then 3 or 4 of us started tearing up, and it was just such a beautiful moment. Yeah. And it added. It didn't necessarily change the outcome of our images, but the images, you know, that was just a byproduct of the experience. It was evidence, if anything. You know, I didn't necessarily take those shots to post all over Instagram for likes. I took it because I was part of the experience and I wanted to remember it. You know, and it's it does create a safe space. I found, and I think that was part of for me anyway, that was part of what made BFOP feel surreal. Yes, there was the craziness and the disorganized elements, but there was also a sense of rhythm and motion to it. That you went from one photography experience to the next. And even if it was sitting, you know, being, you know, buggered after a workshop and you've been walking around town and you've just eaten one of the burgers from Alpine Platter and, you know, you come and sit inside at BFOP HQ and you listen to yourself talk about your videography process in India or Joel talking about photographing film weddings. And then that ends, and then all of a sudden you see someone that you recognize or someone remembers you from something, or, you know, it morphs and it flows like a river. Yeah. And it was so beautiful.
It's a remarkable thing. That's all I ever think about is that's what it is. It's just remarkable. Yeah. It's interesting talking about, you know, you just made me think of something, this idea of when you go and just back to, so it was Jesse's first BFOP. So we connected quite beautifully. There are people who fit the BFOP mold and don't. There's the core stuff where you need to just knuckle in and just deal with the chaos. But the other thing is all of those things you were just talking about. But you made me think about something that I try and express when should make sure people are really comfortable with when we're about to start a workshop, and that is this thing that for me, if I share my screen and show, or you go to my website or my Instagram and you see one of my images, for me when I see those, without getting too deep into but the pixels that you see on the screen are almost irrelevant for me. Yeah. All I really care about these days is whether I look at an image of my own and it makes me feel something. If you look at it and it's visually pleasing for you, that's like a bonus, right? If you like it. But I don't care if you like anything I make. All that matters now is that I look at an image and it makes me feel something. And those feelings for me now, and all I seek in my photography is, I want to remember the experience. I want to know how I felt when I made it. I remember the utter madness on the train in India going somewhere, or on a plane, or walking down to my local beach and this thing happening. And so for me, the depth in an image, when I first started photography, it was always just literally 2D. It was the pixels on the screen or whatever. It was two-dimensional. It was like, oh, that's pretty. And, oh, I managed to get the highlights and the shadows really well. But as I get older and more into my photography, the depth in the image is all I care about. The backstory, how it made me feel, the adventure, and that I think about that a lot. And often at workshops, and it happened at BFOP for me a lot this year, is really giving people permission to worry less about what the pixels are at the end. And one of the things I suggest is I want you to make this image imagining that you're never going to share it online ever. Yeah. You are the only person that will ever see this image. So now what are the things that matter? And it's remarkable how it's way more important that they take a breath, slow down, make all the other things. Yeah,
I agree. And I think you're right. I think as you age and wisen in your craft, in your art, and I found this myself, you know, starting off as a street and travel photographer, you know, almost 10 years ago. I mean, I did film and all of that sort of stuff, but, you know, more recently in the last decade, when I first started off, I was too worried about what people thought about my craft. And being a street photographer is really tricky because it's polarizing. Yeah. Or it can be, depending on your style. And now I just do it because I love the experience. I love being out on the street. I love seeing how people interact with their world. I had my own reasons for starting that, and we can cover that a bit later quickly. But yeah, and I think, and also, you know, watching Ian, because I recently trailed Ian on a cosplay shoot at, what was it, Comic-Con?
Yeah, it was at Comic-Con.
Yeah, at the Melbourne Comic Con, which is probably the second biggest cosplay event, I'd imagine. I'm not the expert, but I trailed in and watched him work and photographed him photographing cosplayers and wrote an article for shotkit.com about the cosplay experience because I thought it was a story worth telling. But more importantly, I wanted to express how Ian approached his craft and the relationships he has with those cosplayers. Like they were walking up to him in the main entrance hall at the convention centre, Melbourne Convention Entertainment Complex thing. And, they were hugging him and laughing. There was that real connection before he'd even picked up his camera. And I think that's just as important a part of the craft as you mature.
Well, people are remembering, people are clearly remembering an experience that they had with you that was positive. And you, that's the one. If you can go into an experience, or if you can go into an interaction, that is what we do, making images with people when there's people in it. And they can leave that experience and go away, and that initial thrill of whatever they're doing wears away, but the remaining memory is that the interaction with you was so good that is the reaction. You are a good photographer. That is the
for me, it was like I always try and form relationships with people. For me, it's about making friends, and the good images that come out of that is really a result of that relationship. It is often quite evident when you're working with someone you don't know, and there's a little bit of uncomfortable air because you're unfamiliar, versus someone you're so familiar with. They're just relaxed. They're able to let their personality come out because they're comfortable with you. So it does make a difference. But for me, I really enjoy making those connections. And getting to know people and getting to understand what they like and trying to get them to be the best version of themselves they possibly can be. So that's one of the kicks I get out of cosplay photography.
So I have a question. I have a question for you, Ian, about that. So, and this may be I may be completely off target here, but my perception, having never been around cosplay people apart from looking at your work and knowing what it is, my perception is that people in that environment, people who we think of as cosplayers, are people who are what's a way to think about it? People that are not extroverts, my thought of people who, and I don't want to use the word, I just say, I imagine people that are into cosplay are kind of comic geeks or movie geeks, and they might not be people who feel confident and outgoing like a lot of us. And so that must make things interesting for you, where you're interacting with people who are not normally outgoing and vibrant. Is that right? Is that perception right?
Well, yes and no. Again, we're trying to, we're dealing with the whole gamut of humanity here, right? So you've got people,
even in that space.
I know cosplayers who are who work in hospitality, who work in the police force, who work as fireys, who work as accountants or software engineers. So you get the whole gamut of people, and I don't know, it might appear that they are the extroverted type because they like to be out there, but being in cosplay can often be, I suppose, like another persona for them, so that they don't have to be their own self. So it can be a form of escape as well for them. But a lot of them really just get into it because they're in a group of friends and they all enjoy doing that. So it's very much a communal activity as well. So definitely. And often some cosplayers will they'll share with me saying that, yes, I've been out there, I've been doing all my cosplay stuff, and now this is my me time. I need some quiet time for a while just to let myself at least recharge, because it does take a lot of them. Some of them will be a convention will last the whole day, and it'll start at 9 a.m. go all the way down to 6 p.m. or something like that. It's a full day, and some of them will spend the entire day in cosplay, they're in 6-7 inch heels. They're in skin tight bodysuits. They've probably drunk a cup of water and maybe had a small bite of something to eat for the whole day. So it's pretty full on for them. And it does take a lot of physical stamina and mental fortitude to be able to push through the whole day. If they kind of some of them will even change outfits during the day.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah,
I think it's wonderful. I love watching it. I love seeing it. It's so creative. I do a lot of 3D printing, and in a lot of the 3D printing things I see online, it's huge. The ability now. People, 3D printers have changed so much, color and speed and the ease of making stuff, and they would be sharing files amongst the community, I imagine. And I think
3D printing and foam forming. The stuff that people make with the dense foam. Oh, it's incredible. There's whole channels, for workshops on it, and because you can use heat, you can use resins and glues and you can make, you've seen some of the outfits are just phenomenal.
All right, absolutely Ian. Phenomenal. So I'm gonna throw an idea at you, because this is kind of how I roll. Imagine, if you will, a room at Comic-Con where it's a studio. People come in and we do because if I think of normal photography and light painting can actually merge. So the skills that you have around shaping light with strobes and stuff, and then inserting light. Imagine a booth where people came in their cosplay gear and we wrapped them in light at the same time. I'm just going to leave that there privately.
They would be they would be thrilled. Seriously,
it would be wild, mate. So you and I should have a chat offline about making that happen next year.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, I would love that.
I think that's a great idea. I would love to see that too. Now that is just an example.
Document it.
Yeah, I've got to document it. That's my job. I am a journalist after all, but please trust me. On the subject of light painting, I want to dial back a little bit, because that is what you're renowned for, Denis, and rightly so. Your craft is absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
There's even on your site, which we'll link in the comments later for those of you watching and listening along at home. There's even a documentary about some of your work and your site. Before I dial back, your site is quite inspirational, because it introduces you and what your philosophy is around your art. You've got a number of galleries. You've got a section on the tools that you use. You completely open and share your process. It's not like you're trying to gatekeep, because this is your specialty. You've made it very accessible and very easy to learn. Putting aside your workshops that you run, the content online alone is quite thorough, which I think is wonderful. And I think that's a key part of our craft, is that, we don't gatekeep, we share. Because if you share an idea with someone and then they learn something new and then they develop something, then they might share that back with you.
Yeah.
And it might enhance your enjoyment of the craft and your output. And, and I think that was something that I learned a lot about with BFOP, because it is so community centric, BFOP. It's all about BFOP community.
Yeah. Look, when I started light painting in 2008, there was it was basically a group called Light Junkies on Flickr, and we that's when I bought my first camera in 2008 or 9. I was 38 years old. I'd never taken a photograph in my life with intent, and I thought it was part of a bit of a. I was managing my mental health and started walking around and making images and putting them on Flickr. And I thought, how is it possible that in the first year of being a photographer, I am the greatest photographer that has ever lived? I clearly there is some miraculous gift inside of me that has been bursting forth until I went on Flickr and realized that, this is not the case. But while I was mincing around on Flickr, I discovered this thing called light painting. And the thing with light painting back then is that we had no choice but to make our own tools out of plastic bottles and hack things together. And there was this astonishing sharing of just ideas and things. And what that's changed a little, I think, with social media coming online. However, for me, it's never changed. And there's a couple of really important things here. The first thing is that I truly believe that it's an old adage, but when the tide rises, we all rise. So if I discover a technique or a way or an idea, here it is. Here's how I do it. Here's how I make it. And you take, so if someone can grab an idea that I might have shared, and super important to just lay this down as a solid concrete foundation, I stand on the shoulders of giants. There is not one part of my light painting that exists in the world that is not either something that I've seen someone do, or more importantly, is an amalgamation of techniques. And that's an important thing to think about. So everything I do, I've learned from other people, but I take those ideas and I mince them around, and here's how I made this thing. Yeah. What has happened is, so my YouTube channel is full of the basics. Here's how to set your camera up. Here's how to do this thing. So as I've moved forward, I've moved more into sort of this idea of not so much the fundamental basics, but here's you can see how I make this thing. Yeah. Do the work, go and spend some time looking back at the old stuff and figure some stuff out for yourself. But you can see how it is. And AI has sort of pushed that a little bit, where we go, it's by the nature of light painting, forever there's been this thing, it's just photo. Back in the day, it was just Photoshop or composite or whatever. Now it's like, you could just do that with AI. And so it has really encouraged me more and more to make sure that people can actually physically see what I'm doing in creating these images, so there's no confusion. Yeah, that it's real. It can inspire and motivate them to go, wow, I can do this thing. And then you wrap it in that sort of wrapping of this idea that the important part is the going out and doing it. And but you're right. There is only one technique that I do. There's only one series I do that I have kept very, very personal, because it's at the early stages. But everything else, I have no secrets. Anyone can ask me any question about my technique, my gear, my philosophy, my mental health, it surprises me how little I don't get a huge amount of contact from people asking me stuff, but when I do, it's really beautiful. I love it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, even in the street photography world, which is kind of where I dwell, and I do street walks with our Fujifilm Australia community group. Ian and I are admins on that group, because this is the Fujifilm podcast. Don't tell Justin I said that. But having people come up and say, so what? And I find this is the biggest stumbling block for people in any environment. I noticed it at BFOP, where people, Jesse would set the scene, tell them what we're trying to capture, and people say, so what settings do I use? And I think that's the biggest, because people know fundamentally what they should do is that they should just try it and shoot, because they can check it on the little screen on the back of their camera. But there's that fear of, I'm going to get this wrong if I don't have the right settings, and I love helping people with that basic stuff. And I notice that, like you said, a lot of your content has the fundamentals, because that can be a big stumbling block for some people. It can be a hurdle that people don't know that, if I want my portrait to look good, well, then I want to go with a wide aperture. Yeah. And people need to learn that stuff, but they also need to learn it the hard way by going out and taking, 1,000 shit images to get the one that they like. Yeah. Let's roll back a little bit. You said that you picked up your first camera in 2008. Yeah. Tell us about that experience and journey. What you've talked about your mental health. I hope you don't mind me asking this question, but
no, not at all.
Because I have a similar story. But what was it that made you decide that photography was going to be the thing to help with your mental health?
Look, my backstory is well documented, and like you say, there's a little piece on the website. But fundamentally, what happened is in pre-2008-9, I was working for a big global corporate in sales, high pressure, with what I realized now was undiagnosed, quite severe ADHD, which answers a lot of questions about my early life. But basically, there was a huge financial crisis in 2008 that smashed New Zealand in the face. And when you're a high-end sales guy selling $1 million printing machines, your order book empties fast. And my life was a mess. This will probably, a lot of people will resonate with this, but often don't like admitting it, that I was managing my mental health with alcohol and drugs. I had no idea how to manage money, but was making a mountain of money. And so when things go pear-shaped, it went pear-shaped very quick, and had quite a terrible mental health breakdown in New Zealand. And my astonishing wife scooped me up off the ground. Literally, we sold everything we had in New Zealand and paid off a lot of my debt, and moved to Australia with a half a 20-foot container and a suitcase, and moved into my mother-in-law's spare bedroom in Australia. And I started getting my shit together, and was thinking of something to do, and had bought this little Canon 450D with a 50mm plastic fantastic lens, and started walking. So I was walking around the Barossa Valley, which is this beautiful place, and walking around and had this little camera. What I think of now is quite comical, but oh my gosh, I tell you what, I just remember having something to focus on, like I had this thing at last where I could go, everything sort of, all my problems were kind of washing away, and I had something to focus on. And again, now that I realized that what I was dealing with in my head, but I was exercising, I was discovering nature. I was going into the Australian outback with this little camera and making images. I discovered light painting. So I started doing this work at night. It sort of filled all these sort of boxes of making things and experimenting and doing exciting things, discovering nature. And so quickly, it helped. It made me feel better. It gave me a focus. I found a community online of other light painters. But when I look back and I think about what is the real thing about photography that is really important now, and I think so. A week ago, I celebrated 15 years of sobriety. So I have. It's been 15 years since I had a drink, and light painting is why that happened. And it was I was drinking a lot, and one night, Kari, my wife, and I went, maybe I shouldn't be getting in the car at night and heading off into the night to do this light painting. Maybe I should try knocking the alcohol in the head. And it was overnight. I stopped drinking. And so in the space of about 3-4 months, this sort of transformation from this complete wreck of a human, this shell of a human, into this quite excited, vibrant, someone with focus. And photography and light painting kind of was the catalyst and the vehicle for that to happen. Yeah. All on this hilarious little camera, and I remember having this plastic Hanimex tripod that someone gave me, and I look back now, and it's like spaghetti, this thing.
Yeah.
but I was making images in that first year, 2009, that still get published today. Still, some of the best images I ever made were made in those first years. And so, we could talk about gear all day, but that doesn't really matter. But that's how it came to me. That was the beginning.
I think it's a good point about the gear. Yeah. People often get another stumbling block. And one thing I did notice at BFOP, loved everyone there, but people were showing up with, and I was just cruising with a 5-year-old Fujifilm XE4 and a 27mm prime or a 50mm prime. Like, I had a really simple kit. But people were showing up with serious dollars spent on gear.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they were the people that asked me, what settings should I put it on? I'm not criticizing it. It might be a little judgy, but I'm trying not to be. I think it's an interesting paradox where we all get swept up in gear acquisition and FOMO, and the people at the store tell us what we need and our friends tell us what we need. And there's a little competitiveness and a little pride in having the latest Canon or Sony or Nikon or Fuji or whatever. But it doesn't make you a better photographer.
No, not at all.
It's the journey and the experience and just being there, being present with a camera in your hand is what makes you a better photographer. Taking the 1,000 shit shots, getting home, putting them in Lightroom, going,
That's it.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Now,
Try again tomorrow.
anyone watching this that knows me will, and some people are quite vocal about expressing this online, but I have a interesting gear story and situation. So you may be able to see. So over here, there's 2 cameras on this rig here. I'm preparing for a trip, and they are both Olympus cameras. Now, the one on the little one is an EM1 Mark II or something like that. So this is an 8-year-old micro four third camera. I love that thing. I love shooting with it. It's perfect for what I need it for this particular situation, and that is shooting in a really bright. This is a situation where I need that camera right now. And this is the thing, sitting in a box over there, about to go back to Matt at Fuji, is a GFX 100 S2, right? I've been thrashing that thing since BFOP. Down in my bag here is a Leica Q3. Sony is my main workhorse for my commercial work. And the reason I like to make this point is I was an Olympus visionary for, I think, 6 years. They had a change in business model. I still shoot with the gear all the time. People online are very, very, very quick to be, very tribal about the gear they use, and very, in my Lightroom catalog, I have 67 cameras. That either makes me a complete camera slut or an explorer.
Not both.
Look, the reason people like Matt from Fuji and people, the reason there's 67 cameras is camera companies like giving me cameras to try and use and thrash, because I absolutely beat the shit out of these things. Light painting is all about highlights and shadows. We are pushing the limit of the gear to the absolute nth degree. So I take these things out and I play with them and experiment. But I tell you what, the most fun I ever have is when I grab a camera that should not be doing what I'm doing with it and make something with it. A great book. The gear, I can put the gear thing to rest in 2 seconds. And I'm so passionate about this. A great image has nothing to do with how much noise is in it, how well it's in focus, how many gazillion pixels it is. It has nothing to do with that. A great image is an image that you look at and it punches you in the gut when you look at it, because you either remember something beautiful or it is something so shocking that you can't believe it, or all of those things are all that matters. I was lucky enough to be, there was no luck involved. I was in London for the first time a month ago, and I had 48 hours in London, and I went to the V&A, the Victoria and Albert. They have this astonishing photography wing, and it is one of the most astonishing places I've ever been in my life. Like, you walk down this room and the walls are just covered in, the great historic photographs and photographers. Bresson, Dorothea, I can't remember her name, but all these, and there's a reason that in the greatest museum in the world, in the greatest photography museum in the world, this image is there. And I promise you, it is grainy and out of focus and shitty, but there's a reason it's in a museum. There we are.
Consumer. I think the biggest problem is that don't zip it up. Your mouth, that is. Consumerism is the evil of art. It makes us think about the tools too much. Tools are necessary in any task, but it doesn't allow us to think enough about the hand holding the tool.
Yeah.
You know, consumerism's telling us that we need 42 megapixels. We now need a Q3 with 60. Oh, you've got the 60-28. Now you need the, what is it, a 35 or a 40? You know, it's constantly throwing at you that what you're doing isn't good enough. We don't all fall into that trap and that marketing bucket, but it's always there. It's always present. And we see the impacts of it in all manners of, whether it be fashion or you know, cosmetics or photography. It's marketing is telling us that it's not enough.
Well, and we live in this time, right, where so I do reviews on my. I'm just sort of reframing what I'm doing on my YouTube channel. It's a pretty chunky channel. Like all YouTube and all social media now, it's complicated to get traction, right? And I don't really care about traction, but the point I want to make is this: that so I do this new thing called Smith tries stuff, Smith makes stuff. So, but Smith tries stuff is me grabbing a piece of gear and going out and having a play with it. And so on the screen there, this is a great example. So Hobo Light is this lighting company. They have a local importer. They send me the thing and say, try this out, because they know that I'm going to do something completely bonkers with it and have a play. I don't sit on there and go, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever made. You know, I go, well, yeah, it's good, it works, but it's flawed. The GFX 100, right? Great camera. I mean, of course, but I'm never going to use it. And 99.9% of people who own cameras are never going to use that camera. And in my review, I say, you want to be really careful about buying this camera because and X reasons, right? Yeah. We live in this time where so much of this shit that exists on social media are shills trying to impress some weird company because they're sitting on their YouTube channel or Instagram telling people how magnificent these cameras and this gear is, when it's so much of it now is just bullshit clickbait.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to pull the truth out of it.
It's so hard, you know. Like I went, I bought a Q3, and I bought that camera for a whole lot of reasons. I was off to India to do an India trip, and I knew it would be a great street camera. It was kind of a bit of a gift to myself, you know, sort of a coming of age, because it's a camera that you buy when, you know. But I thrashed that thing. I've had it for a year now, and it looks like I've had it for 10. Like I use it, I thrash it. It is seriously flawed as a camera in some aspects, but they all are, you know. But gear is and it's hard if you are looking to buy gear to navigate what is and isn't important or isn't good. It's so hard. That's the thing I find.
Yeah.
I think also it can be a journey. Like I know when I first started my photography hobby, or what now becomes more than a hobby, but when I first started it, you know, I was like everyone else, like suffered from FOMO. I was like, ooh, new camera, I got to get a new camera. And I was literally upgrading camera bodies, you know, every time a new one came out, I'd upgrade. And at some point I realized, look, it really doesn't make a difference having 20 more megapixels, or, you know, having the latest greatest lens that can with an aperture at, you know, f1 or something like that. It's what you do with it. And if you look back across the history of photography, even when digital cameras first came out, you know, they were like 2 megapixels or something in the sensor. And the images that were taken with those cameras were still amazing, you know, and they're still amazing today. So it really isn't about the gear. It's about how you use it.
And it's also,
and you know, at some point in your photography journey, you know, we can keep telling people this, but I think it's something that everyone needs to experience for themselves, that using the gear and taking the photos over time, at some point they realize, you know what I'm using works for me. You know, I don't need to get the latest and greatest. I understand what I need for the photography that I take. And honestly, over the last 4 years, I I really haven't really bought that much gear.
No,
Nah,
maybe.
nah,
I sold most of it.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things to think about, like anyone watching this, I need to remember it's not just the three of us. Anyone watching this though, it's very easy to sit watching this, us three who are professional photographers sitting here going, it doesn't matter. But what is, I think if I frame it this way, I think what's really important, yes, coming to the realization that you should push your gear that you have until you genuinely need, like really but this is the thing that I think about. So someone might go, well, why is it that you have a 60 megapixel Sony camera when you're making work that is for well, here's a great example of why and when you do need 60 megapixels. So I was shooting, my main client is a big university here in Adelaide, and I was making work on a Canon 5D Mark III, I think, so 20 megapixel camera, amazing piece of kit, like wild. I've got a great story about that camera. Telstra contacted me and said, we'd like to license an image to use at a big conference, a sales conference. I said, which one? Just send me a link to one you found on Instagram. They sent it to me and my heart fluttered as I panicked that this image was not, and it was on my 5D Mark III from like 2011, opened it up and it was mind-bendingly beautiful and perfect. It was perfect, this image. Anyway, this uni I'm shooting for, what's changed is in this new age of vertical and websites and in commercial photography, what they want me to deliver to them is wide. So if there's a scene, so let's say this is the scene and I'm in the scene, and then there might be a classroom here and then something here. What they need to be delivered is the wide shot, and then them have the ability to make selections from that shot. And so delivering a big file to them allows them latitude and cropping. Now that's a great case. That's a great example of when that stuff matters. This utter bullshit that exists that you need a lot of megapixels to print, that is one of the greatest myths in the history of photography. This image here on the wall, it's hard to see, but that there is an AO print, or an AO, so it is massive, that thing, and that's a crop from a micro 4/3 sensor, and it is perfect. It's there's a lot of myths, but that's a case. Each tool for each situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, Ian, you're about to jump off. You've got other responsibilities, but I often liken it to a tradesperson. Sure, a builder could build a hammer with a builder could build a house with a hammer and a box of nails, but it's not cost efficient. It's not time efficient, and it's labor intensive. Yeah. The right tool for the job for a builder to build a wooden framed house is a nail gun. Oh. Now, you and I don't need a nail gun because we have a hammer just for the odd job around the house. We don't need a nail gun. And it's the same for cameras. You buy the tool, especially if you're working in a commercial space, weddings, some really important stuff that you have to nail it. You have to get it right because it's not going to repeat. All of that sort of, you need the tool for the job, and that's when you spend those dollars.
Now, I was in Saudi Arabia shooting Formula One at the beginning of this year. I did a job light painting with Formula One cars in. I went over there knowing they wanted to achieve these images in these outrageously bright environments. I refused to composite, so the images always have to be in one frame. So we were over there making these images in these insanely bright environments. It was a high pressure environment. They were, that was the real deal. Now, I had a cacophony of high resolution, super expensive cameras and lenses because you get one shot, right?
You're not going to fly you back.
No, right? They want to. That image there on the left hand side of the on the track with the flames coming out the back, and so that there, it's behind me are about 40 people. There's a giant 50-inch screen that my camera is tethered to. So every time I finish an exposure, everyone there is seeing the images, like the pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah, like I've hand scanned, like that car is lit by hand. So I have a scanner that's in my hand that I am, I think at the top of that page is a video that shows the technique. People might be interested in seeing that. I think, this is a highly technical, very, very intensive process that you literally get one shot at. So, and I need the ability for people to have latitude around cropping and using and sharing, and dynamic range is important, right? So at this end, and so there are situations where it matters, but that's only because these are high-end commercial jobs where that stuff matters.
Well, they're paying the coin for the outcome. And
that's it, right? And yeah.
And as you can see here, you're scanning the car with the light. Now, I've seen you do this in person when we were at BFOP, and you were taking shots of Kim, who was wearing a stunning 70s outfit. Because we had and it just looked perfect for the light painting you were doing. It was because the stockings she was wearing were kind of rainbow stripe, and they glowed almost under the long bulb exposure. Yeah. But what we can see here is you.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to drop off. Thank you for having me, and great meeting you, Dennis.
Yeah. So Comic-Con 25, let's make a light painting booth.
Yep, I'll reach out to you.
Done.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
See you, Ian. Thanks for your time.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Watching you and Kim, paint each other with light, and you were lit up with a projector, holding a dinky old piece of perspex that was reflecting the light, and it was falling on your face on one side of your body, and you had your face smushed up quite literally against the perspex. Like it was very inspirational to see. And like your Jetta shots, there was a big screen for us, and we could see every moment. Once you used your remote to close the shutter, and this image processed and appeared, it was like, oh wow, but sitting in the room, it was quite fascinating because the room was pitch black. It was pitch black as it could be for an old church building. Yeah. And
the thing with what was beautiful about that experience with Kim is, and the reason we did that is that we wanted to do this thing and show people what, and this was the idea around the whole BFOP thing for me this year. I do a day workshop and then I do a night workshop, and the day workshop is always in a darkened building, and then the night one is either in the forest, or we did cars this year. But what I decided to do with my workshop this year is people came into the room, and you saw a touch of this. People came into the room, and what I did is I decided this year to take 3 nuggets of ideas that I have, and 3 nuggets of ideas that I have, start to form them, and then take them to BFOP for the next step. So when people came into the room, I said, okay, here's 3 ideas that I have that I've started working on. What I want you to see now is the next step. And the reason I did that was so they could see what my brain was doing, because I talked through it, see that they don't always work, and one of them didn't. It was what we think of as a fail. But to see me sort of breathing life into an idea rather than turning up with a fully formed thing that's just, they're just going to go, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. And so if people get visibility on the way these things build, it can make them go, wow, okay, yeah, right. So this guy, it's hard for Dennis too. Dennis struggles to do this thing, and he's 15 shots that were really sketchy and blurry and out of focus, and now they are, and here's something that kind of looks formed. And one of the things I did at BFOP this year is I'm working on this idea of body movement in long exposure that I'm taking into the water, but I'm forming it out of the water, and I got to show people that, and that was quite mind blowing for people. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Now, I do want to share a couple more of your images while we're on the subject.
Yeah, we can chat about them for sure. I love
most importantly, the ball of light work.
Yes.
And you've been to some extreme locations to work on this portfolio. Let me just bring it up here. Where did I put it? The Ball of Light.
While you're doing that, I'll go back to in the Ball of Light documentary, which is on the website. I at the end of the documentary, I say the words, "Who knows where the Ball of Light is going to turn up next? Maybe here." And up at that stage, I'd only ever played around on my local beach or in the thing, and I never dreamed, not in my wildest dreams, that I think that I would take this thing to the places I have. It has just been quite a remarkable journey so far.
Now, I want to have a look at this image here and talk about this one.
I
I think this is one of my favorite images from your collection. This is Easter Island.
Oh, amazing. That's fascinating that this one has connected with you. That's so
Well,
nice.
I'm fascinated by Easter Island. I don't know nearly enough about it. So I will make that statement up front. I'm fascinated by it. I really haven't looked into it a lot. And I would love to go there to photograph, but I think
It's complicated.
the
I'll
magic.
share. I'll tell you a bit about the trip. It's,
All right, we'll get to that in a sec, but I think the magic of this space is a perfect backdrop for the sort of work that you do with the light painting. It adds this almost otherworldly sci-fi, not trying to cheapify it.
No.
This science fiction clash of old and new,
Yeah.
because there's so much about the old that we don't understand still.
Oh, you're giving me, there are goosebumps with what you just said. That's amazing.
So tell me about your Easter Island experience, because I think Easter Island is like me. It's kind of like it's on the bucket list. I don't know enough about it or how to get there or whether it's even possible. Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, this is so good. I'm so pleased you brought this up because there's a couple of things. The first one is I have like a solid 10 incredible trips I've done in my life that I want to sit down in my studio here one day in a seat with a cup of coffee and just tell the story. Because again, the image we're looking at here is it's all the things that it is, right? It's what is this? It's a thing. It's this, like you say, it's this sort of juxtaposition of literally ancient and something surreal that we're trying to figure out what is going on. Yet for me, when I look at this image, like I was talking about before, there are layers of depth, and I'll tell you how it came about. So I was an Olympus visionary, technically an Olympus visionary for a long time. I am still a massive Olympus advocate. I still use their gear a lot.
So a visionary is like an ambassador.
It is the ambassador, and they had a bit of a change, and things changed a bit. But Olympus were incredible to me. They were, and it's important. This is really. I'll give you an example. I haven't been an Olympus visionary now for 2 or 3 years. I'm setting up this rig behind me here for this thing I'm doing. I messaged Aaron at Olympus and I said, mate, I've got a tip. 5 minutes later, he's back on the phone to me, right? And we're figuring this thing out. Amazing company. But what they did one time is they said, okay, Den, you make all this amazing content for us. We would love you to make a tutorial on the live composite feature of the new EM1 Mark II, I think it was. How would you feel about doing that? I said, of course, I would love to make a tutorial. And they said, yeah, but we're ready to step it up. You do this thing. What do you reckon? Try and design something for us that is a bit sort of different. And I said to them, I said, well, how different? What are we talking? Different budget or different? They said, just come back to us with something. So straight away, I just went, this is the old salesman in me coming out. I went straight to my desk and I Googled, what is the most remote place in the world? Enter. And it came back with some sort of obscure things, but Easter Island popped up, and straight away I was like I was like, wow, that is actually, this is a cool story, and thank you for giving me the space to tell it.
No, that's okay.
So straight away I was like, okay, this place is wild. It's a long way away. It is extreme. Let's do it. So I put this proposal together. I did a budget and I sent it back to Olympus, and they went, perfect. And I was like,
I should have asked for more.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, there was no more. Like they had a budget. Anyway, So I thought, okay, so I started designing this tutorial series, did some study on Easter Island. I needed an assistant, so my wife came with me,
Nice.
and which she very, very rarely does. So it was a buzz for us to, and not because only for the reason that she doesn't come away on light painting trips, because she just ends up sitting around at night while I'm out playing and then waiting for me to wake up in the morning. But she came along. The Latam flight, we had this wild weight limit of gear. It was 100 kilos. So have a guess how much gear we took. 100 kilos on the button. And so because we were shooting tutorials, I needed lighting gear, video gear, sound gear.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to experience. It's this epic flight. So you go Adelaide, Melbourne, Santiago. So you fly over the top of Easter Island and then 6 hours back. Easter Island is this tiny little rock. It's 20 miles long in the middle of nowhere. It is a remarkable thing. We arrived there, and now I had done a lot of research, and the challenge with light painting is that we always need to be photographing these things at night. And all of the awesome places that you want to light paint. So I've been to Angkor Wat, I've been to some places in India. All these places are great ideas, but you can't go in there at night. They tend to be World Heritage sites, so they're protected to within an inch of their life.
Yeah.
So you roll up to these places with the best of intentions. Now, if you look at an Easter Island map, there's one map that exists, and it shows you where all of the moai are on the island. And I was like, amazing. I'm going to go to these places, and I'm going to, it's an incredibly tiny place. Now, there's about 5,000 people there.
Really?
If you click on the satellite map down there, you'll see that Hangaroa is quite a big town, and there's about 5,000 people there. And the reason that tourism got crazy on the island is that it became a landing spot. If you zoom into the bottom left-hand corner there, you'll see there is a giant runway. So that runway is huge. And the reason it's there is because it was a space shuttle emergency landing place. It was so it was right on the flight line of the shuttle.
Oh, that's so typical of the Americans.
The US government built this runway, and it was somewhere the shuttle could land if they had a problem. So all of a sudden they could land giant planes there. So I looked at this map of where all the moai are. We arrived there. I went straight to the tourism place. We hired our car, and we started driving around to all of the moai locations. And the very first one I went to, I walked over and I was like, where is the moai? And it's lying face down in the dirt and covered in grass. It's just this lump of rock. Yet on the map, it shows a moai standing there. Long story short, you come to realize that the only places the moai are that they're standing and the classic ones that you would look at are all behind stone fences, and they close at sunset. So a mild sense of panic came in. And I will circle back to, people might be thinking, well, duh, of course, or surely you would have known that before you went, but we'll come back to that. But I found one in town that was there, present. You could be around it. There was no gates, there was no fence, and I made some work there. But as I was setting up, this guy turns up, and I've got my lights on and I'm mucking around. A local Rapa Nui man comes. So there's the Chileans and the Rapa Nui. Now the Rapa Nui are the indigenous people of the island. They're Pacific Island people who I have a deep connection with because I grew up in Auckland. So I recognized their faces, their language, their tone. But then there's the Chileans, who are the oppressors, now you turn up there and you go to the information center, and the Chilean people are very keen for you to be at these places working, taking images, sharing images. This guy comes up to me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm making some photos. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, no, the guy at the information center said that I could be here. And he said, I don't care what they say, dude. You need to get out of here right now. Have some respect. The Moai need to sleep.
Oh, no.
Forever, I've been planning this thing for months, turn up with 100 kilos of gear, and the one Moai that I can work at is no more. And I said to him, look, let's just take a breath, just pause. And I said to him, look, I have a history with Polynesian people. I lived on Rarotonga for 6 months. I'm from Auckland.
Yeah.
I understand, and we started having a chat about, the cultural sensitivity of the Moai. There's a line literally that you can't step over onto a part that's not obvious. I said, I understood that. And then what I did is I said, look, I have a deep connection with the Moai, and I did this. I showed him that tattoo of the Moai. And
wow, yep.
So that's a tattoo. And he looks at it and he goes,
mine's of Super Mario, but
Yeah. So he looks at this tattoo of the Moai on my arm and he goes, what? And anyway, 5 minutes later, he's like, oh, he said, you can be here as much as you like. So I got to make some work around this Moai, but then I ended up, at a few different places around the island that you normally wouldn't think of. And I'll tell you how that happened, Greg. And this is a really important thing for people that do any photography and going to places that you are hard or shouldn't be. The reason I ended up making the work that I did in the places I did is because I was respectful. I paused and listened to the local people about why is this important to you? Why are you so protective of it? What are the things that are important? This is what I do and why I do it. And you have these conversations with people. And it's interesting, we were talking about cosplay and gaming before. What I do is I am never the main character.
Yeah.
No one more important on the island of Rapa Nui or Easter Island than the Rapa Nui people. They have spent their entire existence being brutalized, enslaved, treated like they are second-class citizens in their own country. And so if you turn up and you treat them like there is no one more important and have some bloody respect, it is wild the different things that you can do. So one of the things you end up doing is making light painting images around Moai. And it was extraordinary, mate.
Yeah.
There is this feeling that happens when you're in this place, that they're only 800 years old, but whether it's Easter Island or Angkor Wat or all of these amazing places, I love to spend time just pausing and really feeling a place. Like I really want to know what is special about these Moai. And you learn, so you do your research, you spend time with them. And then what happens is I then have the opportunity to insert my energy into the space.
Yeah.
And what happened is what you talk about is I'm like making these really freaky things around these ancient places. And so we came away from the island. It wasn't until the last 2 days that I actually got to make the hero images, because it just took that time to get to know the place and the people. And
I think like we talked about before, that's more about the image is the end outcome, and it's beautiful. Here's another one here, and it's captivating, it's mesmerizing. But for you, the experience is all, we talk about metadata in raw files, but there's this kind of emotional data and the data that captures your journey. I don't want to use spiritual data because I think that's a bit wanky, but you know what I mean? Like there's this other layer to the file that isn't tangible.
Look, lean into that idea. Lean into that idea of there being a spiritual component to it. I think, and this is looking at this image here, because this is really interesting. I look at this now and I go, what I would have loved to have done is taken that ball of light and inserted it between the two moai. But those little rocks that are on the ground in front of the moai, tourists walk up onto those rocks all the time. That is the place where you don't walk. The guy was like, he was worried I'd walk up there. So where the ball of light is, that's the closest I can get it, right? But when I look at this, I think of him. There is the history of the Rapa Nui people and the island, which is deep and long. But here's a couple of things. That blue light that is on the edge of it, that is a piece of gel that was given to me by a light painter that I absolutely adore, revere, and is one of my great inspirations, a gentleman by the name of Palatef. Now, he gave me that blue gel because it's a gel that he inserts into him images all the time. And so that is a bit of gel around a torch that is on a light stand that is about 20 meters out in the ocean. So I was walking out into the ocean up to my hip in the water to
set
get
it up
the light far enough away to be able to put that light on it. So it took me about an hour to get that right. So there's a part of Palateth, someone I respect in that image.
Yeah.
The orange light that is on the side of the moai is a tool that's made by another great friend of mine. So, there's all these elements in this image that mean something to me. Yeah. That is the spiritual component to it. It is that energy of all those things. And
I've always likened my. We're going to jump to comments in a second because I think the boys are ready to join us from Lucky Straps. But I've always likened my journeys to Japan as a spiritual exploration. In that I'm not spiritual in the typical religious sense at all. I'm quite the opposite. But I think it was more the experience for me, and documenting that meant so much more than just the images I put on Instagram.
There's something that, and whether we end up talking about Duality or not, Duality is a body of work I made in 2022. All of my social media was hacked and deleted.
I remember you saying.
It's a fascinating. It's something I think people might be interested in hearing about this because it's something I don't talk about a lot. It's really interesting. But I made a body of work across a year that was probably has, if we think about this idea of there being a spiritual component or a connection, like a deep connection to a piece of work, this is probably it for me. And it was the first time I ever really made any work in that way, where I went, okay, I want to tell the story of first take an idea that I think will convey an experience I had into images and insert it and then print it and present it in an actual exhibition, like for the first time ever. And in relative terms, it was only 18 months ago, but what I learned in that year was, firstly, how important social media actually is to life. But more importantly, what that situation with my social media taught me, helped me experience, was what it feels like and what it means to make a body of work that actually has meaning, tells a story, and all those things. And more now, when I think about the next phase of my photography, when I go to these, and Easter Island was a bit like this, is trying to take that not idea, but my normal work, whether it's on the beach, in the water, in the forest, and approach it in that way. Yeah. And you could be doing street photography in Japan and still have that thing.
Definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah, I reckon.
Let's jump to some comments and then we'll see if Jim and Justin are around. First of all, hey guys, Romeo.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
From
that's
Portugal
amazing.
here.
Yeah, I think I recognize that name. It's amazing.
There you go.
Hey.
We've got David Mascaro from California. G'day, David. Welcome to the show. I don't know who this idiot is. Good morning, legends. It might be the boss. And Dave, Digifrog, just in time. Morning, sir. Yeah, thanks, Dave. I've been here for bloody an hour and a half. You haven't said hello to me. Justin replies, Frog, how are you? I think these boys should get a room. Here's Jim. And Dave's back saying there's a bit of a bromance going between Dave and Justin, I think. Pumped. Good show in progress here. Love this. Oh, finally some recognition for my hard effort.
I love it.
I'm gonna jump on to Justin's here.
Hey,
coming to us live from Vietnam.
Here he is.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning,
are you,
sir.
Justin?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
How you guys?
His
Great.
stream
We're
is
having a
coming
great
online.
chat. And here's Jim. Good morning,
Hey.
Jim.
Hey, g'day, Jim. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I realised that I have made an egregious error. When it said, "Do I want to put anything under my name?" I forgot to put anything. So
We
I
can
should have-
change it.
I
Hang
don't
on.
even know what I would have written.
Let's put something fun there now.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't really have a label.
No labels.
No labels.
No, I don't like
Right.
labels either.
Troublemaker.
All the kids these days, they love a label.
Yeah.
There we go.
You're very kind. You're very kind.
Dave did issue an apology. I will accept it. I was engrossed in Dennis's work. Sorry, GC. Love you too. Love you too, mate. Miss you already. We've had a star-studded cast on today. Ian's had to jump off. He's got other responsibilities. But welcome, Justin from Vietnam. Not from Vietnam, but in Vietnam. And
mate.
Jim from Bendigo.
Not from Bendigo, but in Bendigo, yeah.
Well, you know, yeah. Where are you from, Jim?
The other side of Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
The other side.
I'll
Yeah.
claim Bendigo now, though.
Yeah, I'd stick with Bendigo too.
Yeah, me too.
You know,
Um,
not wanting, a thought just popped into my head that I just want to because it won't come out. You know, when we think about light painting, people, so I'm a commercial photographer, filmmaker, street photographer, all that stuff. Light painting is certainly a component of it. But here's an interesting thing. Because light painting came to me first before I became any of these other things, light painting makes me a better photographer. And I go back to something we talked about before, is because light painting is all highlights and shadows aggressively at either end. I learned to see light really early, and I think if I'm doing a corporate portrait at a uni or whatever, it always I learned to see light, and I think that's really interesting. Anyway, I'll zip it.
No. It's a really good point. And I found that too as I matured in my photography, that I learned to see and read light and develop an internal sundial, especially as a street photographer, that I always know where the sun is.
That's the one.
Now,
Just, on
let's
your,
hear from the boss.
Well, I was just going to ask Dennis, have you guys talked about what you do beyond light painting? Have you guys talked about the business side of your photography, like how you pay the bills? Has that come up?
It's always money with you. It's always money with you.
I'd like to hear how people.
It's one of the things that blew me away. Things that always blows me away about being in India is how is it possible in a country with 1,400 million people, no matter where I am, the internet speed is hyper fast. always.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Go on, Justin. Ask your question.
Well, I just wanted to hear more about the business side of things, how you pay the bills, Dennis. Like when it comes to photography, you said light. Can you not hear me very well?
No, I can hear you.
I can hear.
Dennis, can you hear Justin?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll translate.
Yeah, can you translate, Greg?
Yeah, because Justin's from Vietnam. Justin, sorry, Dennis. Justin wants to know how do you, the business side of light painting, how does that pay the bills?
Amazing. That's a great question, and something that I don't talk about much or get asked very often. And again, like I said at the beginning, I'm a completely open book, and I think a really interesting way to describe it is this. Now, I am getting little spits and bobs of spoken coming through there, but I'll try and ignore that.
That's just his normal cadence.
So look, it's been an interesting journey for me as far as the business of light painting goes, and I'll go through it reasonably quickly. But I think something that is, I'll start with the middle of it, and that is COVID, because COVID for me and my light painting business as such, there was pre and post COVID. So how does my income come in? So since I have been writing invoices in photography, pre-COVID, 50% of my income was from commercial work and 50% from light painting. And the commercial work was fundamentally video work and stills work and education, food, pretty standard stuff. And I have a business partner and a company, a partnership that works over there. And then quite separate from that was the light painting. And the income from light painting was made up of workshops, so teaching photography, manufacturing and selling light painting tools, so the devices we use for doing light painting, and then commercial work. And those three pre-COVID were pretty balanced. So workshops were massive for me. I was doing a huge amount of workshops, often at all sorts of different levels. So $99 workshops for people that have just never even had a go, who don't even have a camera, going to schools, doing that sort of thing. And then some sort of high-end workshops here in Australia and internationally at a kind of a different level. And they were amazing. I love it. Very, very, very high energy, very, very complicated because you need a lot of equipment. So there's a lot of light painting tools. So they were quite technical. And then there was, workshops, the light painting tools. So the ball of light tool, the tool that makes the orb, I manufactured and sold over 1,500 of those and about 4,000 of the heads, all made by hand, every hole, every solder in this workshop. So I manufactured them all myself, but then a whole variety of stuff, the scanners that I use for doing portraits, like all of that sort of thing. And that was a solid business. It never made a profit. And that was intentional because I wanted to make the tools accessible to people. So it never really made a profit, but it helped fund a lot of different things. Then fine art. So I sold a bit of art, not a lot. It's a complicated space. And then commercial light painting. So engaging people wanting to either license images commercially or me to use light painting to add to a product or a thing. Now,
like with the F1 in Jeddah,
that's it, Formula One, a bit of corporate stuff, that sort of thing. And so leading into COVID, so 2017, 18, 19, it was getting really good. It was busy. And then I leased a big building down here in Port Adelaide and built a gallery. So I was going to have a gallery space. I live in this beautiful part of Adelaide. And then, of course, COVID, right? Boom. It was wild. So I had just leased this building, put a lot of coin into this gallery. That kind of fell apart. The light painting tool thing got awkward because it was awkward. The commercial work was drying up because, of course, the universities aren't working. So what I did is I kind of dialed everything back, and I got rid of the building, got rid of the lease, all that sort of thing. Eventually, I fought with it for a little while, and really the where the income was coming from mainly was selling the light painting tools. And recently, so the business of light painting post-COVID changed quite dramatically, where it was I didn't need as much income because the building was gone, and I kind of refocused a bit on what mattered around that stuff. But then a thing happened, and this is really important thing for people to hear, and I think is a long-winded answer to this question. I woke up one morning. I used to give presentations to groups of creatives about marketing creative businesses, and I used to give people a thought experiment, and it was this, and I think it's still relevant today. If you are a commercial photographer or photographer of any type where income is your main thing, I would give people a thought experiment, and it was this. What would happen if you woke up tomorrow morning and Meta had burnt down? No Facebook, no Instagram, do you still have a photography business? And you can insert this into any type of business. And people would go, yeah, of course I do. Yeah. And I go, right. So I'm going to ask the question again. Let's think about it seriously. If you woke up tomorrow morning and social media was not an avenue to market your business, would you still have a business? How does your website look? How does your email database look? All these things. Well, I walked out of a building one morning and looked at my phone, and there was an email on my phone that said, we've successfully changed your password on your social media. And it looked like spam, because that's what it looks like. And as I got in the car, I was like, that feels different to me. Got back to the studio, gone. No Facebook, no Instagram. And that was the predominant way that I marketed all of my things, my workshops, because back then, and I'm talking only 3 years ago, it was still a great tool for, if I was doing a workshop in Madrid, I could do a piece of marketing material and focus it on Madrid, the light painting tools, and it was gone. And I was spending quite a significant amount of money with Meta in marketing. And I promise you, there is not an avenue we tried to get a hold of them to bring it back. And it was gone. And so I woke up one morning and answered my own question. Do you still have a business? And I did have a solid website. I had a very good email database, but my creative life changed in an instant. It was wild. Learning that. And so what happened is that income changed. In answer to your question, Justin, that changed quite a bit. I had to very quickly pivot. I know this is a cliche thing, everyone in the photography world is an entrepreneur until they need to be an entrepreneur. And what the difference between that is when the shit hits the fan, how do you deal with it? And so I dealt with it. And what I did is I decided to take a year off social media and really reflect on what it was, why I needed it. And what I ended up doing was making a body of work and learned how to be an artist. I made a body of work, and then the first time anyone saw it was in an exhibition. And
is this Duality we're talking about?
Yeah, Duality, yeah. And it was.
I'll just bring up some of the images while you're talking, mate.
Thank you. Yeah. So on the website is actually a video where I do a full walkthrough of the exhibition. It was pretty wild. And the idea, I'll share what the idea is. So I'll give you an example. So if we click on the top left one with that one there, and this is a very special image to me, and I think it represents the idea really well. That one there. No, next one down. That one there. Yeah.
That one.
No, up one. Up one. Up one there, where the mouse is now. That's the one. Yeah. So if you click on that.
Yeah, it's not expanding anymore.
Oh, that's okay. Well, people can see. I need to sort that website out, but people can see. So the idea of the exhibition is this, and people can go look it on the website, and I walk through the show. But in this world of social media, right? Everybody, I decide what you see of me. So you go onto my Instagram or whatever, and you see me. You see who I am, what I do, the work I make, the life I live. But the reality, the brutal reality is it's only what I choose for you to see. So you see this very in-focus, sharp representation of me, who I am, what I do. The reality is that in the background, behind that screen, out of focus, that's difficult and murky to see, is this real me, or the real us. And I spent a period of time reflecting on what was it that I was allowing people to see of me. And the reality is, for me in my life, and I'm brutally honest about this, and I was during the creation and the aftermath of Duality, is the part of my life that you don't see is a complete and utter disaster. Well, not disaster, that's not true, but it is complicated. Yep. I have severe mental health issues. I have a lot of personal issues. Business is hard. Life was hard at the time when I was making it. It was post-COVID. And that is the stuff that you don't see. And what I was trying to represent in this body of work was that. So I developed a technique that again, I stand on the shoulders of giants. That the part of the technique, so people that I respect and love had been using these techniques, and I developed this technique that I show very clearly in the video, where I could do these light painting images that were partly out of focus and partly soft, and then partly super sharp and clear. And that was what I made here, and it was wild. I learned how to be an artist. I learned how to really lean into work. There were 4,900 images in the collection that I selected 13 from. And at the end of it, and so the final element to the answer to your question, Justin, in November 2024, how does the business of light painting look for me? It looks very different. I no longer sell light painting tools, like zero. That was a very difficult decision to make. The majority of the income into my light painting business comes from doing corporate stuff. So Formula One this year. I've been working with a couple of other companies on some sort of private stuff. I still sell quite a bit of art. And really my focus now over the next 5 years with my light painting is to do more higher end stuff outside of Australia, because it's complicated here now, business wise and art wise. But I am also, and this is, I've only just started talking about this, I am formally studying to become a counselor, so a therapist. And so in January 26 is the goal to be seeing my first clients, but I'm taking my light painting and my photography and am going to be formalizing it as a form of art therapy, which is what it's been for me over the years. And
that's amazing.
And I think that there is photography saved my life. 15 years ago, if I had not discovered photography and light painting, that was a really, really core part of what stopped me killing myself. Both, what I want to do now is help hold space for other people, like space was held for me. And I truly believe that photography can be a really beautiful part of the maintenance of mental health in a time where we are desperate for that. And so that, in the final part, in answer to your question, light painting will be a huge part of it, and that, in reality, that's part of the business. That was a very long answer to quite a simple question.
No, it was a beautiful answer. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
That's what this podcast is for. That's why that goes for 2 hours, so we can
it's
have.
It's beautiful, man. I'm a massive fan of long form. The other thing as well, here's an interesting thing. So I have a pretty comprehensive YouTube channel, and I this is in this room is where I make a lot of that content and out in the field. I intentionally don't monetize my YouTube channel at all. I don't. I've got some videos on there that have had 100,000 plus views. I think that one might be monetized, but it's a myth that you make money from YouTube. I intentionally do not monetize any of my videos, and I never make a cent off the channel. But that is a massive part of what I do. It's a beautiful way to connect with people and share that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So why not? This is a completely tangent. Why not monetize them, even though it'll be cents and dollars that you get from them? Not, it's, as you say, it's not big money, but why not monetize them anyway? Because I'm under the impression YouTube slam the ads in there regardless as to whether you.
It's really interesting. Hey, it's interesting. Yes, they do, but from what I understand, the volume of them is different.
Okay.
The interaction someone has with my videos is certainly different than now. let's say, for argument's sake, one day my YouTube channel blew up. In my mind, it does. The fact, like, if I get 200 or 300 views on a video, I'm wrapped. Like, it's a big deal for me. It means I've connected with 200 or 300 people.
Yeah.
If one day, let's say one day, all of a sudden, and I do have a video that's had 140,000 views or something like that. Like that, some of them do get some pretty good traction. I also know exactly what I need to do on them to get traction. I'm not interested in making those videos. But if one day my YouTube channel went completely insane because I was making videos that were about like proper stuff. I want to make videos that inspire people to go and have a go. Understand what is really important. All those things. And eventually my goal is to be leaning into this idea of the connection of mental health and photography. And you know, Greg and I were talking before this word spirituality. I deeply believe that for me anyway, there is this connection between whatever it is you want it to be. Would I monetize the channel? Hell yes, I would. If there was a chance for me to pull enough money that that became my main avenue for sharing good news, I would. But unfortunately, and you guys know this, and I think most people know this, that it's a bit of a myth that anyone makes a lot of money on YouTube. You need to be getting millions and millions of people connecting with your YouTube account to make money, or do sponsorship. And I don't, and I, for me, I'm, the fact I've got 67 cameras in my Lightroom catalog is, I just want to use everything. I don't really interest in sponsorship, apart from Lucky Straps, of course. I mean,
that's right.
Your connection to your camera. No, I'm kidding. Beautiful product. I saw them. I mean, I'm happy to share that. When you handed me that strap in at BFOP, it was very, very, very nice. That is what a beautiful product. You guys have done a really nice job on that. And full disclosure, I wasn't handed one to keep. I don't own one. So.
We can arrange that.
Yeah, we'll take care of it. Don't worry.
I know a guy.
Yeah, got a connection, back of the truck kind of stuff. Did you boys have any other questions for Dennis before we move into kind of looking at Justin's efforts?
Probably a ton, but I'm mindful of the time, so maybe we'll have to do a part 2.
How about we do this? I can. I'm conscious that we're going to move away from this space here, and so if I often think when I do these things, is what can I say or do or deliver that someone watching this will just. I just want people to just take a breath, lean back, and just think about a thing, and so I'm just forming this in my head. I've not made any notes or anything, but I think that you know, we were talking before about this sort of focus that exists around gear and all that stuff, and we can have gear conversations till the cows come home, but I really, really hope that what people do when they look at my work or they look at what I do or how I do things is just remember just to pause. Sit back and have a really good, hard think about why it is that they are putting a memory card into their camera, pressing the button and making an image. You know, is it to put onto social media and gain traction? Is it to share with a private group, to connect with other people? There's all these reasons that we do it, but never more than ever has it been more important to hear the words that we should never use social media as a guide as to whether our work is good or bad.
Yeah.
There has never been a more powerful monster that exists in our society than the algorithms that drive social media to draw you in and make you believe what is and isn't good. If you make an image that genuinely gives you goosebumps when you look at it on the back of the camera and when you reflect on it, you are making good work. Do not leaving social media truly made me decide to not give a insert F word about whether anyone likes anything I do. Stopping making tools was a big one, because I didn't need anyone to look at my work and go, ooh, I can do that, buy now. I don't care if you like what I do. I don't give a shit, and you shouldn't either. There we are. Insert, done.
You can say fuck. It's okay.
Oh, good. Well, okay, mate. I don't give a fuck.
There we go. See, doesn't that feel better?
Oh, it does.
So much better.
Give a fuck if you like what I do. I don't care. And I've never made better work because of that.
Yeah.
How's Vietnam, brother? That is somewhere I would love to go and make work.
You would love it. You would love it. I'd love to see the images that you would come back with. It's been amazing. I'm running around with the camera every day. It's not a photography trip that I'm here for. It's a holiday. But every time I leave the hotel, I've been taking the camera and taking tons of photos. Lots of photos that aren't even very good. But I'm just what's the word? It's like sensory overload. It's just like new and different visual things that I want to take photos of, even though like the light's not great and whatever. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I've never seen that. That's
I'm so proud of you. I'm sincere. I'm being sincere. I am, because I know. No, because I know, and having watched you work, but also watching your daily challenges, how much you express, and your internal dialogue was external as well, about how you would see a shot and the light's not good, and you would kind of, it would stop you almost from taking the shot sometimes, watching those videos of you on your challenges. But it's really great to hear, and I mean that quite sincerely. Because in the work that I do in street photography, there's 100 or 1,000 things in the frame that aren't right, but it's not about that. It's about documenting the moment and the interaction and something that caught your eye, that you thought was worth, capturing. Quick input here. Hi from Wales, from Keegan the Vegan.
Hey, Keegan.
Keegan the Veganator.
Came here from Dennis's Insta ad. Bit late, but enjoying the chat while I'm working.
I was just up there. I just went up to the UK. It was, what a stunning island.
Yeah, it's on the list for sure.
Well, it's the first time I've ever felt a sense of place. Like I've my grandmother was born in Bath, and when you grow up in the Antipodes, you don't have a history. It was the first time I ever felt a real connection to any sort of personal history, and it was a nice feeling.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very nice. Now I want to jump to change topic a little bit, but I want Dennis, please, we value your input.
Yeah.
We're going to critique Justin's.
Oh, we're doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing the thing.
But does Dennis know that I'm doing what I'm doing each week? I'm
embarrassed to say I'm not, mate. I
don't know what he's talking about either, so don't worry.
So this started from this is the third week. On a whim, a few weeks ago, I decided I was going to start submitting. This was after BFOP. I did the photo essay workshop with Chris.
Oh my gosh,
Hopkins. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
You're a very lucky man. You're a very lucky man.
It was a great workshop.
Oh,
well, we'll have Chris joining us on the podcast early next year.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So anyway, coming from that, I decided out of nowhere that I was going to start doing a photo essay, loosely termed. These aren't photo essays, obviously, like Chris does, but like I'm going to submit a set of 12 images each week on the podcast. And so this is week 3. So it has to be 12 images. It can't be 11, can't be 13, 12 images. Hopefully some sort of cohesive set of images, but there's no set theme or anything like that. So it's more been, I'm trying to uncover the story while I'm shooting them and then editing them down, rather than going out with a specific, theme or story or something like that. And so far, and including this week, they've all been straight out of camera JPEGs. So unedited,
Nice.
just as shot, which is why sometimes the horizons are a bit tilted. But that's life in the big world. So these are from so far from Vietnam. But it was a quick. Anyway, I won't say anything more than that. You guys can just tear them apart, and then I'll tell you about the process.
Does everyone still see them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're just going to scroll through them, and then we'll come backwards. And am I going in the right order that you intended,
Yep.
Justin?
Perfect.
Wow, wicked.
Oh, I like that. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah,
that's
how
really cool.
cool.
Oh,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, these are great, man.
these are really cool.
Mm.
Is that a kid?
That is a kid.
Look at that.
That scene unfolded next to us pretty quickly. He just popped down
Yeah.
behind that car and took a big swig out of that bottle, and then got out in the street. Yeah.
Wow. What an insane capture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow. Mm.
oh, that is absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's the last one.
That's the last one. Yeah. Start and end on the boat.
Starting in on a boat,
Hmm.
which is kind of life in Vietnam. So I'm going to take a stab that the storytelling is about how the people travel, how they
Move,
commute,
yeah.
how they move through their world.
Yeah.
Am I on the right?
Yeah, transport. That's sort of what seemed. I mean, that was just while I was shooting. It just unfolded that way when I was looking back through the images. I mean, that's just what life is here. But that and just so many the contrast between new and old and abandoned, and that's like, I love that. That's one of the newer boats that I've seen, and it's completely
It's trashed.
unusable, trashed.
Just left.
You get the feeling that the wooden one at the top is probably handed down 4 generations and still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a real
Insane.
contrast.
Yep, bike, the juxtaposition of the old bike and the modern car. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
then I love you see the fan up the top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is awesome.
It's a little layers.
I love looking at these. Yeah, that is.
What is he doing? Sitting on a chair? Is he like a traffic?
I think it was just traffic. Yeah, just keeping an eye on the story.
I think that's my favorite shot, that one.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
This
a
one's
little
wonderful.
Yeah, these are great, man.
Yeah,
A lot of layers through this one.
Yeah, and the depth going down
The street and into the building as well.
and this depth going down, and the depth in here, and there's something going on up here with the lighting, and
You know what I'm hearing these scenes, which is weird. Like I'm hearing, and I'm hearing the cars because I've been lucky enough to go to a place that's as crazy as this, but and know that feeling. But that is wild, man.
yeah, that's very cool.
That is very cool. And these are straight out of the camera, which is very. That's a neat thing. I think you and I had a chat about monochrome when we were in Bright. It's something I'm really looking forward. I spend a lot of time with my camera set to black and white, even though it's shooting raw. I'm trying to teach myself how to see in
Same.
grayscale.
I'm doing the same thing.
That's beautiful, man.
This is my favorite.
That is, that's mine too. Quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I like that one too.
Yeah, no, that's print worthy. I mean, I think many of them are, but this, I think, captures a moment that's just
the expression.
and also we don't get it here in Australia. We don't understand that at night these places really. That's when most of the commerce takes place.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is this is a very touristy market. This particular one, But once it starts like raining, it's mostly locals like just sorting out life, whether they're packing stuff up or whatever. And but yeah, this particular market there'd be on the next street along when the weather's nice, there'll be people getting photos with the women that carry the fruit on the getting touristy kind of photos and stuff like that. But then it quickly turns into real life once the rain comes.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to shut this screen down. However I do that. Tell me about what you've learned from that set of images.
Well, first of all, what's really hard is like shooting. Obviously, I'm shooting black and white and raw, so I've got a bit of an idea of what's going to happen after this. But shooting a country that looks like Vietnam in black and white is you feel like you're giving something up because the colors are so cool and so different to what it's like in Australia that you want to like make the most of those colors, the yellow, like textured walls and all that sort of stuff. That's what your eye gets drawn to. But then, like Dennis was saying, when you shoot in monochrome, it then becomes about the composition and the light and the person in the shot or the subject or whatever. So it's I don't know whether it's helped or not. I was a bit worried that those images were going to fall a bit flat because they're just black and white and Vietnam's got so much color. But I don't know. I think they're good. But
no, I think they're great. I think. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I like it. It's good.
You like it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's good set. I think the sort of the water throwing on the boat I think it was the second image as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I've got a better shot of that. I got 2 shots. The first one's so tilted, like so much that Jim would have roasted me. The horizon, like not so tilted that it's like a Dutch tilt, like a creative one, just tilted enough to think, what was this guy doing? And it's those little things that you take for granted when you can just jump in Lightroom and just go, whoop, I'm a perfect. So what my process I think will be, what'll be interesting. I'm almost treating it like I'm shooting film, but not, as David's asking, am I shooting film? No. And I have used film before, and I'll go back to it at some stage, but I sort of go in bursts where you sort of get into it and you get your process sorted and the lab you use and all that stuff. But I haven't shot it for probably 3 or 4 years now, and it seems like a daunting task to get all that
started again.
Get started
I think
again.
The price is daunting most of all.
That too.
I do these.
But I'm thinking it'll be interesting because I've only looked at the black and white JPEG so far to pull this set out of it. But I'm looking forward to at some stage when I'm ready going back through the color raws and almost looking at the images from a new perspective, like editing them in color, using some of the ones that maybe I didn't get perfect in camera that I can adjust a little bit in Lightroom and then have a second go through of my images.
Color shots.
Yeah.
I think that's a good. I did that with. I think it was my second trip to Japan when I went to Osaka, Hiroshima especially. I shot in RAW, but I did a collection of photos that I made a photo book because that's what I was doing at the time, and they were just all monochrome.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so much beautiful color, but I did a second run. That I kind of used in my blog more than anything. That was the color stuff, and I think it's good to separate because it does make you look at the same thing in 2 different ways, completely different ways, which I think is fascinating.
And it makes you look at the scene differently. It's my next India trip is so I do these super minimalist India where I just take one bag, and the next I came back from this last trip having shot a lot of video. So I had 2 bodies, but the next trip I'm taking one body with one fixed lens, and I'm hoping it's going to be a monochrome body. But I'm looking forward to taking that challenge to the extreme of one camera and a few batteries and go do it. And I think those challenges make us better when you pair back the gear or the idea and going looking at things monochrome. I think does that as well, is it challenges us to see things differently.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good point. Justin, how have you felt this trip? You took a lot more gear than when you went to the States.
Yeah.
when you
So
just took the Leica.
yeah.
Are you feeling like, are you just using the one camera mainly, like, or are you feeling overwhelmed with options?
Not overwhelmed with options, but I haven't used all of the gear. It was a little bit of a test. It's interesting. I haven't been reaching for the Leica as much. It is the best camera to carry around for sure, and it has the best image quality. But Dennis will probably laugh at me for this, but the autofocus in like using the R5 Mark II, which is the other body that I brought, the autofocus, I know it so well and it's so reliable. There's shots that I've gotten that in the cities and stuff, even that, like, I don't know if I even would have got that shot of that the woman in the rain with the bike, even though she was completely static.
Yep.
What's been tricky is as soon as you lift your camera to your eye, people notice you immediately. Like if you point the camera at them, they look at you and they're like, "What are you doing?" So you've got to get the shot before they look at you or before something happens. So it nails focus so reliably. I've been reaching for that, and I thought it was interesting. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
So I here's the thing. I, having shot with, like, in my commercial work, same thing, very high end, very super fancy, fast focusing, all the stuff. Going to the Q3, it was a very quick learning experience, especially on the street. But here's what I did, mate, and this is fascinating, is I went, okay, so what is the thing? Like, why are these renowned or revered as such amazing street cameras? And what you learn is, and again, because it's so new to me, is this idea of you don't shoot autofocus, is you lean into the idea of the way those lenses work and stuff. And so what I did when this last trip to India is I decided to spend an entire day shooting manual focus and learning. I wanted to go, okay, like, and so what you do is you go, okay, well, there's the woman on the bike, and you kind of know, and it changes when it's dark. But I started to, I wanted to know if you could do it, how it worked, and how many keepers I got if I started to use manual focus and stuff. And at the end of the day, I was getting quite good at it. And hitting them all, because what it does is it removes this whole element of even thinking. All you're doing is looking at the shot and looking for it. Now, shit gets weird at night when you're shooting at f1.7, and but what it does is it certainly I was shooting a lot more from the hip, from the hip, and getting keepers. But you're right, it is it's hard. Hey,
Yeah. And I like slowing down with the Leica a little bit. And I shot a manual focus on Leica a lot in the States, but it was not street stuff. It was more landscape kind of. It was slower, and I enjoyed that. But I don't know. I'll have to go back through my images and look at them and try and remember the moments and be like, well, could I have got this with the Q3? But
well, there were scenes where I was, like you say, as soon as it was busy behind where the person was, or there were multiple people, I just straight onto manual, because it would just was complicated. I made the comment earlier when we were talking about gear, Justin, and you and I had this conversation at BFOP, and I'm really honest about all these things, is yes, the Leica Q3 is a very nice camera, but it's seriously flawed. And in some areas where I think to myself, how is it possible that these things are even an issue on this camera in 2024? But then I remind myself that all cameras are seriously flawed in different areas. But it's designed to be used in manual focus, that's for sure.
I might even do a whole podcast, Greg, with you about this at some stage after the trip, or something about gear and stuff like that. But the other thing that I'm leaning towards, despite the fact that everything in my photographer's ego wants to push back against it, is I brought a travel zoom, and I got shots with that I wouldn't have got with a prime. And I'm a prime guy. Like Jim will tell you. Like And I've been trying to figure out why, and it's almost like I think the prime's a little bit one of those things that after I like the process of shooting with a prime a lot more, but I tend to gravitate towards that. I think once I get bored with the photography subject, like when Jim and I guess got reasonably competent with weddings, we were like, well, let's start shooting with primes because I don't know. It's almost seems...
It does something for us.
It does something for us. It's more interesting. The process is more fun. But then when I was over here, I thought I would shoot mainly with primes. But I kept, I would take the 28 out and I was like, it's just a bit wide for what I want to do. And then I'd take the 50 out and then I'd end up in a situation in a tight alleyway or something like that. And I was like, it's just a bit tight for what I want to do. And then I took the 24 to 105 f4 out, which is just it's a little bit heavier than I'd like. It's f4, so it's slower than I'd like. But I was sort of running around like a kid, just taking photos of whatever I could point the camera out. And I got some good ones. And I was like, okay, maybe,
I'm with you, man. I'm this last India trip was stills and video, and I took I was shooting high speed video the whole trip, and I took 2 primes. I took a 20 and an 85 and a 35. And I'm very used to swapping lenses very quick and all that. But the next time I go on for this type of thing, there's no way I'll be taking primes. There will be, it'll be a 24-72-8 or something like that on the camera, because I think it's a bit like this. Like there's some, when you're learning photography, like I still am quite aggressively, there's these things. Primes are better for all these like you tick all these boxes. The prime is better because of this, and this. And there's all the adages attached to that, like, well, your feet of the zoom and all this stuff. But the reality is that if you're in a situation where you just getting the shot is more important than anything, who knows? No one knows. If the image is good and you've zoomed in to 105 because it just makes that smashes, maybe what it is, maybe you guys would know this better than me. I wonder if there's been a feeling that the quality of the image is better from a prime because zoom does zoom. The quality of I've got some zoom that are mind-bendingly astonishing all the way through their ranges.
Quality is subjective.
Yeah,
that's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or the person paying for the shoot. If it's a paid gig, that's different. But I think for what we're talking about exploring our craft, exploring new environments, whether it be, Vietnam or Japan or Easter Island, I think there's a lot to be said for what makes you feel good as a photographer. Are you feeling anxious with a zoom? Then don't use a zoom. Stick with your prime. If you feel limited by a prime, then shoot with it's
what gives you confidence. What having in your hand gives you confidence to realize your intention. And if you're in Vietnam on the street and you get to the end of the day and you go, man, or you're a bit anxious or whatever, if whatever you have in your hand gives you confidence to achieve the creative goal of the day, that is what you should have in your hand. If your goal is to come back and go on social media and go, I shot this with a 24 f1, watching with a friend. Well, that's your intention, and you pick up that camera. But if you don't give a shit, if you look at this image here and you go, oh my God, I wish that I had been able to just punch in and zoom in to get a different viewpoint or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Blah blah blah.
So let's quickly whip through them and we can break down my stereotypes. Isn't that so? That's the 20. That's the 24 to 105 at 24. Honestly, I was on a bridge. I needed to be wider, and that was the widest I had. And I thought I missed the shot, and then I looked at it again. And I thought, you know what, being cropped like that, I actually don't mind it.
I like it.
But
you couldn't use your legs in that time either.
I could have tried to fly, but also I had to run. Elena will tell you one day I had to run along the bridge to be above the boat
Oh, wicked! How cool!
He's going
How
under,
cool.
and I'm like, you know, when you do that thing from like you slowly go from a fast walk to a run because you realize you're like, I'm not gonna. You're trying to look cool, and then you're like, I'm not going to make it, and then you start running.
But see,
doing the math.
knowing that is what makes it a great image.
Yeah,
true.
So this one again, 24-105. I've zoomed it into 43 mil just to frame it up the way that I wanted to frame it up with these. What are those things?
Logs.
Bamboo log things. Yeah, logs. Yep. Logs. So that was the zoom as well. Yeah, they're wrapped in. So they're using to slide the hulls down into the water.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what they're wrapped in. That's the 50 mil 1.8, the nifty 50.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 24-105 again, particularly in Ho Chi Minh, like when there's traffic and stuff, zooming with your feet's pretty dangerous. So that was the other thing. It was pretty handy to be able to frame and stuff when there's just 8 lanes of traffic.
Was that at 24 as well?
That one was at 24 as well. Yeah. I noticed that I do that thing with zooms where I treat the wide end like a prime and then I zoom in. But if I rack it out because I see something like this about to happen, it just ends up, I'm very rarely at like 26 mil on that lens. It just racks out to 24 because that's just where it stops and I shoot at that. Yeah,
nice.
That's also the 24-105. I would have been just walking past, saw it, and as we went under the umbrella, just again dropped it to 24 and took a shot.
Yeah, you're lucky that there's lots of lines that aren't straight,
so you can't realize how tilted it is.
Yeah, I can't roast you too bad.
Well, I was actually trying to frame it perfectly. No, that's just what happened.
Well, you kind of almost straight off his umbrella, but.
The first thing when I look at this, I think about something I learned on my last trip to India is and this is when we think about a 24-105-4 and you talk about it not being fast enough. A trap I fall into, and it happened on this last trip with the Leica and with the video, is being wide open too much and losing a lot of the story in the background. So I look at some images and go, I do actually wish that was sharp, because your eye follows through the image and you're like, and if it's tempting to go too shallow sometimes.
It's more so at night. So if I'm transitioning from day to night, and even the 2.8s weren't fast enough. As soon as it got dark, I want a wide. What I want. So the next image, this is with the 28 mil Canon pancake lens, which is a 28 mil 2.8, because Canon currently don't make anything better for 28, which I really like the 28, which is why I bought the Q3. Canon don't make like a 1.4 or 1.8 or something. Otherwise, I'd own that, because I just find 2.8 at night, unless you're doing something like this where you can slow the shutter down and I'm not moving. I was just having to push the ISO way too high.
Too high? What's too high in ISO? When you say that, what's a...
For me, on the R5, look, black and white is a little bit different, but just knowing how the images will fall apart. 6400 is nice to stay at. I'll shoot it higher than that, but I'll shoot it.
How nice to be able to say that, right?
I know.
Hey, what a time we live in.
It used to be 1600 or 800.
Yeah, exactly. That's the 28 again. So that's at 4,000 at 200ths of a second.
Gosh,
that's about where I would sit at a lot of the time at night. And looking at that now, it's fine. In my head, when I shot that, I was like, man, I wish I had a 1.4. I'd shoot this at 1.4.
Yeah.
But it's actually fun.
I shot my first India trip. I shot the entire trip on a Canon 24-1.4, and that was a great street lens. It was.
I'm wondering whether a 24, because Canon have released a 24-1.4 for their system just recently, and I'm wondering whether, like, I'm sort of used to the 28, but the Q3 is a little bit wider than a 28 apparently. Like, it's like a 26 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder if I'd notice the difference in a 24, or if I literally would just take one step forward, and it maybe not be too much of a difference. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you just review the images that you've shot with the 24-105 and see how many of them were at 24 and whether you like the framing. And if you do, well then, you know, maybe there's an argument there for you to get a 24 a 1.4 prime.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like if you were shooting at 24 though, and it went to 20, you'd be shooting at 20.
That's what I was saying. A lot of the time, it's because that's as wide as I've got, and then like once I rack it out to 24, then I'm like, oh, actually step back a little bit or whatever. Yeah, I think Jim's right. It's like I'm using it to in my head. I go, I need to go wider, and 24 is as wide as it goes. So it's not necessarily that I love that exact focal length, but I don't know. So that's
this idea that where you just shoot real wide and crop, it just doesn't. You learn when you're on the street, you learn real quick that is not.
It's not going to work.
No, exactly. No. You don't want to be doing that.
No.
What you're saying, Justin, is you want a 28 1.4 like the Nikon lens that I've got.
Yes, that Nikon 28 1.4 is a wonderful lens. I miss that lens. That's great. On the D850, that was an all-time image quality, great camera and lens combo. Little bit on the heavier side, but quite manageable.
Worth it.
That's the 28 again, so that's at 5.6. So yeah, I was shooting a lot at like fairly sort of deep apertures, and then that's the 50mm at f2.
But again, it goes back to like all of these images that you're sharing, because we're talking about that depth of field thing, all of them. I really love that I can tell what's happening in the background. You know, there's because that's with the street photography and the storytelling in the street. It's all part of the story, unless you don't want it to be. But I'm loving how I'm falling into these images and realizing that I can't see any tourists here. Now, if it was super shallow on her face, you might not know that, or you know, it's this is the one. This is
the one.
Oh
yeah, it's my one too.
That one was with the nifty 50. So if any of you people out there are looking for cheap lenses, you can't go past whatever system's got their cheap 50mm lens, and if you don't have it and you don't have any primes, just get one of those.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good everyday lens.
So anyway, so that's what I learned about lenses, was that zooms are fun as well.
Yeah,
don't have to be
whatever. We were talking earlier. I used an analogy about a hammer and a nail gun for someone who's just looking for the right tool for the job. You know, and lenses are no different. We get swayed by opinion and social media and marketing to believe otherwise about certain things. But speaking of lenses, I just want to jump to a couple of the comments, because there's some lively chat going on about lenses in the comments. So from Keegan the Vegan. I love my Tamron, 28 to 200, 285.6. It lives on my camera. I would love a 20mm 1.8 or a 24 1.4 if anyone needs a kidney.
My 20mm 1.8 is it lives on my I've got the Sony 20-1.8 and it's my go-to video lens. That thing's beast.
Yep.
And that 28 to 200 friend just got that and. See, this is the thing: is the idea of the 28 to 200mm lens even 5 years ago would have been comical, and now some of the stuff is mind-bending.
Jimbo's got that the Tamron. What is it? The 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking about. That's the one.
And that's insane.
It's crazy.
It's unreal. It's an unreal lens.
Yeah.
Witchcraft.
Yeah. Can I just add? Speaking of. Keegan the Vegan, being a vegan, his kidney would actually be in pretty good quality.
Well, it would be a high-quality kidney.
High-quality kidney. Dave has said 24 to 105. F4 is so versatile, but heavy. I've also got the lighter RF 24 105 F4, 24 105 F4 to 7.1. It's about a third the size and weight. Very underrated, particularly for travel when you need that light, compact option. Question here from David. Justin, can you speak to the difference of photographing someone there as to another Asian community, maybe in your country? Here in San Francisco, Chinatown, they can get in your face a bit.
I probably don't have enough experience to answer that question. I don't really photograph a lot of street in Australia, so I don't know. Dennis might have more.
Yeah, I think. What do you think, Dennis?
Oh, look, the thing in for me in somewhere like India is everyone is so personable. Like you this is a whole nother conversation about that trip, but I have this quite interesting method, and that's be really nice. And
Controversial.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And what happens is the next person down the road sees you being really nice, and the person you're having a chat with having a great time. But people in Australia, or insert other place, not quite. Like, you don't just stop on the side of the road and chat randomly to someone about them and their life and everything, and then go, oh, by the way, I'm a portrait photographer. Would you mind if I made your image? Yeah, in India, everyone wants to stop and have a chat, and it makes it easy. And so my response to that question is, everywhere's different. People, if you live in San Francisco and people are really outgoing and chatty and friendly, it might be completely different to New York. And what I know is that however, that does not mean that people make great images in India all the time. I still see so many tourists and photographers walking around just like stealing portraits. There's not one portrait I've ever made in that country that I've not stood and either had a conversation with, chatted with, or connected as I'm walking towards them, and and develop an understanding of what is about to go down.
And I think that's the stuff that I don't understand as much. Like, so I don't do any portraits in this kind of stuff. I like to document things, but people would also say my photos are probably pretty fearful in the eyes of other street photographers, because when I am walking around, and again, if Yelena was on here, she would say, because I've said it to her quite a few times, like, I'd love to take that photo, but I'm not going to, because I sort of think about it, just because I'm in Vietnam. If I was in Melbourne, I wouldn't take that photo, because the person on the other end of the photo would be like, did that guy just take my photo? Like, what? I'm just working my job or whatever. Why did that person point their camera at me as they walk past and not even say anything? So it's sort of like, I think in my head, I'm like, once I cross that boundary of like you're saying, Dennis, you've interacted with them by stealing their portrait, but you haven't had the respect to interact with them beyond that. That's the line that I don't want to cross, I guess.
And it is a whole other, I mean, we know that there is a whole genre of that, of the images, but that is how the image was taken. It's designed to be shocking and confrontational. When I think of my favorite 20 portraits that I've made in India, whether they're video portraits or still portraits, it's when there is this deep connection where they're looking at the camera as if they're looking in my eyes. And that is something, I don't know what it is, but that is something, one of the things I've learned is how to make that connection quite quickly, but also, and most importantly, is recognize when you haven't. For every great image you see that I've taken somewhere of anyone, there's 10 where either the camera didn't even come up to me because you just know that either it's not appropriate, or they have indicated even non-verbally that this is not something they want to do. And
you got to respect that.
I just got a book before I come over here, actually, that and maybe one day I'll explore the portrait interaction side of this kind of work like you do. But are you a Steve McCurry fan? Not fan. That's a sort of, it seems like in his work that's a lot of like some of it is photojournalism, and then some of it is the deep portraits, and it's just a completely different style.
The whole, and this is again, not going deep in. I have an astonishing book collection of photography books, and art books, more importantly. But some of the stuff I love the most of street portraits and learning, and when you read those stories of how these people operate, and one of the joys of social media is we get to see them operating. There's so many varied types, like images that look like they are. Images that look like there's these sort of candid portraits, and then you realize, shit, actually, they're not at all. They're these highly, not staged, but there's real effort and energy and time put into making these images amazing. I love all of the different types, you know.
Yeah.
All of it.
Nice.
The video, this video idea in India this year was a super success, and another chat. But that navigated that whole idea. I wanted people to see the phases of the portrait on the street, and the phases of this. It's the you want to take my portrait. Take my portrait. Oh my God, you took my portrait. And what I did is I lifted a high-speed video camera up to my face as if I was taking a still, but it's recording 100 frames. And so you get this 3-minute long video of those processes, that whole length. And some of the results were extraordinary.
Yeah, I got to see some of that at one of your presentations in BFOP HQ.
It was a real success. It was a big
Beautiful.
success.
Yeah, beautiful. Because there was so much else going around. You were solely focused on this person, and you could tell from the look on their face that there was no fear, there was no defensiveness. Mm-hmm. Their walls were down because of that connection that you make. But the amount that was going on in the backgrounds of bicycles and cars and chickens and dogs running, and but it was because it was all silent, slow motion.
Yeah.
It just sort of really captured a moment in time. It was quite mesmerizing to watch. I am conscious of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that clock and trying to.
No, it's good. We love this. And for those of you that are at home or pretending to be at work watching and listening, we thank you for sticking with us. Couple of quick news items before we say our farewells. I won't bring them up on the site. Fujifilm have just announced yesterday that they are developing a dedicated GFX cine camera.
I saw
with
that.
Basically the GFX 102 Mark II image sensor, which is the same that's in the GFX 100S Mark II, which Dennis currently has a copy of that he's been throwing around.
I shot some video on it too in the studio here, and it was pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And also the X Processor 5, which is all Fuji flagship bodies now. But yeah, and it's a big boxy thing. It doesn't look like a typical GFX. It looks very much like a workhorse rig. Not many details on that at this stage, but more to come. Nikon, this one's for Jim. In case you're looking for a second shooter, Jim, Nikon have just dropped their Z50 Mark II. That just came out surprisingly last week. There wasn't a lot of preamble about that one. It just kind of popped up. And I was actually talking to a retail outlet here in Melbourne, and one of the employees said, yeah, we got like less than 24 hours notice. We had to prep a marketing brief and, get it all up on the site. So they were kind of the standout news items. The only other thing, which I think Justin should fund a Lucky Straps trip, is that there's a new imaging trade show coming in March of next year. It's going to be in Bangkok. And all the big brands are expected to attend. So we're seeing some resurgence in trade show activity, which, obviously died a very quick death during COVID.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to go to Photokino once in Germany. I did a presentation and light painting booth there. That was mad.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. But that's a big event. So Justin, we'll send you our seating preferences. For the flights. After the show.
Yeah. Did you want premium economy or business class, Greg? I know you.
Business.
Oh, okay.
What is this question?
Yeah. No.
Well, I'm working on
I have standards.
I'm finalising just right now a potential shoot in Dubai next Thursday, and I have realized that Emirates are flying out of Adelaide now straight into Dubai, and it's like you get on the plane at 10 p.m. and you're there at 5 a.m. So it's just a slightly more uncomfortable sleep than I normally have.
Yeah.
But business class would be nice. That would be.
Yeah. I've only ever flown business class once, but fortunately that was to Tokyo.
Wow.
It was Jetstar business class, so it's not. It's just
It's not.
less rats in the business end. But that brings us to the end of the news. There's a few things happening. A couple of rumbles about Sony's about to drop a new camera.
Yeah.
Fuji have just announced they're developing something special. So there's a lot going on in the industry, which is good to see.
Yeah, there is. It's feeling in a complicated economy. It's and it must be hard for those companies.
Well, it sounds like the camera brands are making money at the moment by the sounds of the profits that they're releasing, that they're actually they've stabilized after the big drop that they went through, and maybe they found that this is the level we operate at.
The new normal.
The new normal will just double the price of all of our L series lenses, and that'll help keep our profits.
Yeah, you'll still buy them though.
I love you.
On that note, I want to wrap up. But first and foremost, I want to thank our guest, Denis Smith. Denis, thank you. You are a legendary light painter, as your title suggests.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute blast having you on. Thank you for being such an open book and making yourself vulnerable to share your experience in the hope that others learn something or are inspired to, try something new, or just at the very least get out and shoot with a camera. Be present, breathe, take your time, take the shot.
Take a breath and make it for you. Make it for you. If you make the work and the experience and the images for you, it'll make it better. And thank you. I appreciate the invitation. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Wonderful.
What's the best? You've mentioned a few places like your YouTube. Obviously, the website is the hub of everything you do. What's the best way for people to keep tabs on what you're up to?
Instagram. So my Instagram account, which is the Ball of Light, is at the moment is the one. I'm very busy. My website is about to get a whole new refresh. But YouTube and Instagram are the ones for sure. But it's a little Instagram account, but I'm engaging with it more and more every day, and trying to make it just more fun. But Instagram is the one. Yeah.
Cool. Worst case, folks, Google Denis Smith, and it's hard to miss the search results. Look for the light. Look for the ball of light. Yeah, we will drop the links in. Dave, thanks for joining us once again with his message. Thanks, lads. So, Denis, possibly off to Dubai.
Yeah, we're just trying to close it down. There was a meeting last night. It's a weird time zone. I've been up till 3 every morning, like trying to close this thing down. But there's a huge Porsche festival in Dubai. It's the biggest Porsche festival in the world. There's some complications around. I mean, it's a weird industry, but we're working on some light painting stuff up there. Automotive is my big thing at the moment. So yeah, we weirdly, we're waiting. I'll probably know in the next 24 hours. It's looking very, very, very likely. But I'm just ready to drop any of these things. I can 48 hours. I can be anywhere in the world making light painting images, and I think people just know that. But yeah, Dubai, crazy place. It's like a science fiction movie there.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Wonderful. Jim, thanks for dialing in. You were late again, but thank you. Any plans to pick up a camera yet?
Not yet. No,
still in recovery mode?
Yeah.
I'm going to navigate that story.
Sorry?
What's going on there? Anyway, that's what I want to know. I want to know the basis of that sentence.
The short version.
Recovering from surgery.
Yeah.
Broken femur, 18 months ago?
Whoa.
Yeah, 15 months ago, yeah.
15 months ago? Yeah.
Wedding photography is a crazy sport. That's
those brides.
Bridesmaids went straight into him.
The bridesmaids jumping for the bouquet. They just took him out. Let's see his camera. Jesus. Justin, what? How long have you got left in country?
We fly out on Saturday.
Okay.
Saturday. So we're I'm in Hoi An at the moment. We get a flight from Da Nang in a few hours, actually, and fly back to Ho Chi Minh. Couple more days there, getting out on the streets, and then home.
Wow.
Enjoy
Safe
that.
travels.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
Make the most of it. That sounds awesome.
It has been great. And it's cheap. You can actually afford to be over here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'll just show you the view from our $50 a night hotel room.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
the beach.
What is that? The beach?
Interestingly, what I think I want to come back here and shoot is see these buildings behind me.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an abandoned resort, completely abandoned, and there's
Ooh.
tons of them everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like
that is-
so there's a ton under construction and there's a ton that are abandoned. It's like
Isn't that
they
crazy?
just if it
That's
doesn't
wild.
go well or whatever, they just rip all
Walk
the
away.
stuff out and just
Yeah.
move on.
amazing.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
It's
Maybe a
interesting
future
to talk
project.
about. That's the thing with India is ultra cheap to be at as well. It's a big attraction to going to make stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the
Very
list.
good. Well, look, on
Cool.
that note, thank you all for joining. Thank you, everyone who's been watching live or listening. No, watching live. And for those of you that catch up later, as I know many of you do, thank you for jumping on the video, whether it be the video or the audio podcast. Make sure you look for that too. Make sure you leave a comment, like, subscribe, tickle the bell so you get notified when we're up to no good. But on that note, Justin.
Last thing, one quick sponsorship thing.
He always has to say the last word.
Our biggest sale of the year starts
yes.
very soon. It's only for previous customers and sneakily email subscribers. But if you're not one of those, just DM us on Instagram or something, and we'll get you access to it. But it won't be advertised on the website. It starts in a couple of days. So,
It's the family sale, is that? what I
Family
saw?
sale.
Family sale, and also the new wearable merch.
yeah, Jim's got some on.
That's a pretty
Yeah,
nice T-shirt there.
T-shirts.
Yeah,
hoodies.
we'll
Greg's
get you
got his
one.
on. I haven't got mine on. Mine are all dirty. I didn't bring enough T-shirts.
All right.
So yeah,
Well, check
That'll
out
do.
the Lucky Straps website. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. And this has been the Camera Life Podcast, episode 38. It's the 14th of November. Signing out for now. Stay safe. Have a great weekend ahead. Get out and shoot. Doesn't matter what camera, doesn't matter what lens. Just get out there and look for the light and make yourself happy, if no one else. All right. On that note, have a good time, everyone. See you next week.
Yes.
thanks guys.
We need some outro music, Jim.
Yeah.
I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving